Hello everyone, this is Gilbert Gillard. I'm talking to you here from CPLS headquarters in downtown. This is Tufts on Tax, where all your tax questions are answered right here with Mr. T. Scott Tufts, the master and the expert when it comes to tax law. Hello Scott, how are you?
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. First, this is going to be a special episode, especially post Ian and what happened with Hurricane Ian. I hope everyone watching or listening is in good shape and everyone is safe and sound and no damages to their house.
Our thoughts and prayers go out for everyone who have gone through some struggles with the hurricane or worse, and certainly we wish them the very best.
Yeah, our condolences to all the people that lost their lives too and their families. So basically today our topic is Hurricane Ian's impact on your taxes, and how is that going to happen?
Yeah, so, with taxes, your 2021 taxes, if they're under extension, it's not an extension to pay, it's an extension to file the tax return. So many folks have these complex returns with K-1s hitting their return, and they have to figure it all out and get that done. And the normal date would have been October 17th, because the 15th falls on a weekend. Because of this hurricane, everyone in Florida is declared under the protections of the covered disaster areas under the IRS laws, and therefore they will have an extension of time until February 15, 2023 to file those returns that were impacted by this. So we're talking about the 2021 returns, and then we're talking about deposits, estimated tax payments, and so forth, also giving you that extension if you're coming up on a quarterly payroll or other such return. So it's a very important relief provision. It does cover the entire state. As those were impacted in different ways.
What are the procedure, or what are the steps that we need to take, or these people have to take, or they have to be aware of?
Well, it's automatic. If you have it's automatic for those who have a residence or business in the state in order to qualify. The IRS will know it from the from the address you have on your return. I guess if you have a prior address and you're new to Florida, there would be a way to establish that. But basically, they tie to the address on the return. If you're also eligible for assistance if you're not in the covered disaster area, but you've got a records request or something impacted by it. For example, let's say you have a Florida, your records are located in Florida, and you can't get to them, then you can establish that with the IRS as well if you're in an audit, if you're out of state. But basically tied to the address. But what's important, kind of most significantly, is the disaster relief that I think a lot of people may not know about, and that's Section 139, qualified disaster payments to employees and contractors are not taxable to the employees or workers. So employers...
Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so any employer, right, can take a deduction, right, for payments made that meet this definition of qualified disaster payment. So obviously important to know what we're talking about.
Okay.
But the employer will get a deduction, and it will not be income or subject to self-employment tax or Social Security tax for the recipient. That's huge. So let's talk about what we might be talking about there. What is a qualified disaster payment? And the key there is something that is specifically tied to the eligibility of payment. It cannot be like a double dip, but it's got to be for relief. So someone is suffering from loss of home, loss of whatever, instead of the employer saying, "Oh, here's a bonus," or "I'll pay I'll pay you while you're out," they can give them a subsidy, and it will not be taxable.
Oh,
and they get the deduction. Very good benefit.
Okay.
So let's say it's in lieu of compensation, but it won't have that. If you got paid, Gilbert, for a week off and had paid time off, you would pay tax on it. You would have Social Security tax on it, and so forth and so on. This is a provision that is saying you will not pay tax on it. You will not have to worry about that, but the employer can get the deduction.
Oh, okay. Well, the employer gets the deduction because they paid?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is employer.
So it's not really coming out of the employer's pocket? I mean,
Yes.
it is coming.
No, it would be money that comes from the employer to benefit workers who, for subsidizing their harms suffered or whatnot, because it's disaster relief. Okay, if it can meet that definition of qualified disaster relief, it can be a deduction for
on their taxes when they file the taxes?
For the employer. Okay. And it's basically to pay for the benefit of a person, to reimburse them or pay reasonable and necessary personal, family, living, or funeral expenses that are a result of a qualified disaster.
Oh, wow,
and Hurricane Ian is a qualified disaster. Okay.
And this is active
also
right now?
amounts paid to repair or rehabilitate a personal residence. Let's say somebody's had their roof blown off.
Yeah.
Then an employer can step in and subsidize that repair. Again, it can't be covered by insurance or something like that. It can't be a double dip.
Exactly. So that's what you mean by double dip?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that too.
Right. But again, you're showing that the residence that has been harmed attributable to disaster, employer can step in and help out that employee, subsidize that, get a deduction, and not have it subject to tax.
What about, here's another question for you in a different way. Okay, some employers had to give time off to their employees. And how is that? Because that will affect them. Let's say some employers, like also here CPLS, they let their employees, for their safety and everything, and 4 days, let's say, or 3 days out of work, but that delays or costs money for the company. So how is that? How do we
Well, the
with
question becomes whether the employer needs to specifically establish that separately from the normal pay.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So let's say you get a paycheck. Maybe you should get two. One that's paycheck, and then one that perhaps is earmarked for a disaster relief, right? But if it's just generic in general without quantifying a specific disaster relief need, then that would be something you'd want to look at very carefully before you assume it would qualify for that.
Okay.
Now, most people, if they've gotten their paycheck now, it's already been, the money's been taken out, it's part of their paycheck.
Correct.
Meaning they didn't have to work that day. That's a relief as well. That would not be a disaster relief payment. It would just be, we're all going through this and you're getting...
But would the employer be compensated for this loss during that time of the hurricane?
Oh, good question. So the employer will certainly be able to take the deduction for that, those payments. There's no question.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a gift like you and I are thinking about it. It's going to be for the benefit of the employee type payment.
Okay, so they can claim that as the employer, as
for
the
sure.
business.
For sure.
These were
It's
our
not a
damages.
gift like that. Although, maybe that's a good point to make. It's very difficult to make a business gift that will be eligible for that treatment, meaning non-taxable to the recipient and not deductible, or deductible depending on whether it's done as a perk. So there are a number of fringe benefits that the code sets up that are deductible to the employer and non-taxable to the employee. But you have to meet a number of rules and provisions to qualify for those. A great example of that is parking. If it's employer-provided parking, they put a lot of limits on that. So you have to go through those carefully, those fringe benefits. Okay.
I see.
So.
Wow. So there's more.
I think the main thing right now is for folks to know that they probably have a reprieve from worrying about getting those tax returns done by the 17th of October.
Okay.
But it's going to be more of an onus to make your appointment with your accountant, to have some quality time to look at your situation, and then included in that will be perhaps an opportunity to if you are struggling and whatnot, will the employer step up and provide this disaster relief of some measure? They certainly can. Doesn't mean they have to, but they're certainly eligible to take advantage under this provision.
So they have to see on both sides who
Sure.
qualifies for what and
Sure.
what they can follow to. And how long does it take to receive those? Is it just the process procedure and
Yeah, there's
time
nothing
of the-
special about it. It would just be the employer decides to make that qualified disaster relief payment to an employee or worker, and that person accepting it. But it would be the treatment of that, and probably not treating it the same as your normal paycheck,
I see.
meaning a separate payment.
Okay.
Be like a bonus, but not treated as compensation. Taking out withholdings and stuff
Withholding
like that.
taxes, yeah. All right. Something else we wanted to cover?
No, I think that's the main thing. Just act now. Think about what has happened, and obviously go about these next 3 months of tax planning with knowing you can take a breath and look and get those returns done, but do it with deliberately and not wait for the last minute.
Yeah, and have these things in mind and
Sure.
ask questions. And of course, if you have any questions, any more concerns, please don't hesitate to call Mr. T. Scott Tufts at 877-647-7887. Again, that's 877-647-7887. Or you can email him at stufts@cplspa.com. That's stufts@cplspa.com. You can visit our website, cplspa.com, and go to his profile. He will answer all your questions. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Stay safe.